Welcome back to Cheddar, everyone. Today, we spoke with Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and began our conversation speaking about multiple protests in her state. Some protesters with visible firearms calling for the reopening of Michigan during the coronavirus shutdowns. And now, the anti-racism protests that were looped in with the Black Lives Matter movement. Both protests received very different responses. Let's take a look at what she told us.
Yeah, so, in the early days of COVID-19, it was growing exponentially here in Michigan, and we had to take an aggressive approach. And because of that, there were a lot of detractors. They showed up at the Capitol, and in the capital of Michigan, believe it or not, you can bring a weapon in, and they brought in automatic rifles and yelled at representatives. I was not in the Capitol, and I do not control the Capitol grounds, but I have been very clear that I am very concerned about all of these protests and what it means to the safety of state representatives and legislators and the general public, but also concerned about what it means for the spread of COVID-19. These anti-racism protests have been largely peaceful. They have occurred in various parts of the state of Michigan. I have joined them on the front line of the protest because I do think it's important that anyone with a platform stands up and uses it against racism and in favor of reform in our police departments. And so we've been known for a number of protests here in Michigan, and they've come from very different angles. But the fact of the matter is, I do support people's First Amendment rights. I do believe that this change in terms of policing in our country is long overdue, and I wanted to make my voice known on that front. But I did wear a mask. I did not shake or hug people or give high fives like we usually do when we recognize one another. We stood in solidarity, and we did it safely.
And so I'm glad you bring that up. After weeks of protests, a movement to defund the police has emerged. Detroit Police Department chief said in an interview with Wall Street Journal or Fox over the weekend that this is all knee-jerk and overreaction, end quote. Governor, how does the state of Michigan, which has had its own history of police discrimination against black people, actionably uproot actionably departments with proven systemic issues?
Yeah, so I think that's why it's so important that we lead with an agenda that addresses police brutality, that calls on leaders in Black Lives Matter, as well as the NAACP and our state police to get to the table and to put forth an agenda that keeps people safe. We have taken direct action here in Michigan to start the education process of our police forces in terms of mental health checks, in terms of tactics and de-escalation, in terms of ensuring that we have real representation in police forces. But also, it's really important that we continue to move forward together. We're fortunate that these protests that have happened have been peaceful. They've been focused on George Floyd and the far too many stories like his that have played out across our country. And right now cannot just be a moment in time. This has to be the opportunity that we all take to do better, to fix the problem, because it doesn't matter who you are. You should have every expectation that you are going to be safe in your community. And I can't imagine what mothers in my position, mothers of children who are African American, worry every time they leave the house. We have to do better, and this is our moment to do that.
Based on governor's recommendation records, you did suggest decreasing the state police department budget for 2020-2021. Is further defunding or demilitarizing of the police in the state on the table, and what types of figures should we expect?
Well, demilitarizing is an incredibly important aspect of this. But what I would acknowledge is that this is about investment in communities. Policing, being a peace officer, which is what they should, be striving to be. These, organizations is about protecting the peace. But what we're really missing in this country is real investment in communities, rebuilding communities through creating opportunity and leveling the playing field, ensuring that every child, no matter if you're a child in poverty or a child of color, that you've got an excellent education that is available to you, knowing that we've got opportunities and access to transportation and good paying jobs and health care. This is what this conversation really is about, not just about the police, but about real opportunity and equity and justice in this country. And it comes from investing in those things so that we can make this a place where everyone has a real opportunity. And that has not been the case. And that's precisely what all the conversation is about, demanding that we make that kind of an investment so that everyone's got an opportunity.
With the time that we have left, let's move on to the presidential election. You endorsed Biden for 2020. Trump won Michigan in 2016. What do you expect from the residents in your state in 2020? And how are you working towards making Michigan a Democratic pickup?
Well, Michigan is a state of hardworking, good people. And you know what we expect our leaders to be hard and good, hardworking and good people as well. I think that Joe Biden is going to resonate here in Michigan in a way that will bring him into the White House. And I'm excited about that prospect because I do believe we need a change in this country. What we have seen in the last 4 years has been difficult, is putting it incredibly lightly. I think that Biden will carry the state of Michigan, but I don't think any of us can take that for granted. We're going to continue to work hard. But when Michigan had our back against the ropes, when the auto industry was struggling, it was the Obama Biden administration that had our backs, and I believe we'll have Joe's back when it comes to November.
President Trump has he's expressed a tenor of frustration, if you will, towards mail-in voting. Do you worry about the president calling the legitimacy of your state's results into question if he loses in a close, largely mail-in election this year?
I think it is, when people are worried, they're going to try to find fault in a number of different ways. And I think that's what's fueling some of the tweets that we've seen in the last few weeks, especially when it comes to voting. Absentee voting has been going on in this nation for a long time. In fact, many of the people who now say that they're opposed to it have used that right in a way for them to participate in our democracy. We want to keep people safe and we want to ensure that every vote is counted. And so we are going to make it easier for people to vote in Michigan. The more people that vote, the better for our democracy, and the more likely we'll have leadership that represents who we are and where we want to be in this country.
Now, Governor, you find yourself in a very finite mix of candidates right now, as in mid-May you said that you had an opening conversation with the Biden campaign about possibly being vetted to become Joe Biden's running mate. Where do those talks stand now?
Yeah, I made a mistake by even revealing that. And so I'm not going to go there with you. I think that, it's to be even mentioned in this incredible caliber of leaders is an honor. I've got my hands full with COVID-19, with a 500-year flooding event and demonstrations around police brutality. And that's where all of my focus is right now. But I think that Joe Biden is going to be a phenomenal candidate, no matter who his running mate is. I'm going to be there. I'm going to have his back, and I'm excited about that prospect.
Perhaps let's round this out with the COVID response, shifting to reopening. What does the phase-by-phase reopening plan call for in the state, and are you happy with the results so far?
Yeah, so I talked about how Michigan had this uniquely hard time with COVID-19. It hit Michigan hard. We're the 10th largest state in the country, but for the long time we had the third highest number of COVID cases and COVID deaths. So we had to be aggressive. In doing that, we really dramatically flattened the curve, and we've saved thousands of lives. And now we're in a position where we are incrementally re-engaged in our economy. We came up with a 6-phase plan that was informed by the best science and epidemiology, because what we want to do is avoid a second wave at all costs. And so as we continue to re-engage, we're making steps forward, but we cannot drop our guard now. COVID-19 is still very present, and it can start growing exponentially if we take this for granted. And that's why everyone's got to keep wearing their masks, continuing to do their part by trying to stay 6 feet away from others, and washing their hands and avoiding big groups of people.